Welcome to the Depth Dive. Tonight, we're venturing into one of humanity's most persistent questions. Really quite intriguing.
Hmm.
Imagine, just for a moment, looking up at the night sky. Not just seeing stars, but really truly wondering if something more profound arrived here long, long ago.
It's a powerful image.
We're talking about those, ancient whispers, gods from the sky, they sometimes say.
Right.
And the mystery of these massive stone structures that seem to defy primitive logic, or what we think is primitive logic.
Absolutely. And the scriptures, too.
Exactly. Scriptures filled with strange flying chariots and things like that.
Yeah.
So our mission in this deep dive, really, is to journey through these ancient ruins and the myths surrounding them
Okay.
to uncover this gripping possibility. Did humans once look skyward and see more than just, celestial bodies?
It's a fascinating possibility to explore.
We've gathered a whole stack of sources for you today, articles, some really groundbreaking research, and our own notes, too, all to explore this truly captivating theory.
Sounds great.
So, okay, let's unpack this together. Here's the truly mind-bending question for you. Did extraterrestrials visit our ancestors?
It's a huge question, isn't it? For many people, it genuinely reshapes their entire understanding of human history, maybe even our place in the cosmos.
Completely.
And what's really fascinating here is how these ideas first sort of took hold in the popular imagination, especially in the latter half of the 20th century. It sparked a global conversation.
Right. It wasn't always fringe, was it? It really hit the mainstream at one point.
It did.
And when we talk about this theory really catching fire globally, who was the key figure? What was the catalyst for all that interest?
Yeah, that would definitely be Erich von Däniken. He was a Swiss author.
Von Däniken.
Exactly. His 1968 book, Chariots of the Gods, just struck a massive chord worldwide.
Chariots of the Gods. I remember that title.
He basically put forth this really radical idea for the time that many iconic monuments we marvel at today, the pyramids of Egypt or even ancient megaliths in South America, that they weren't just the product of human ingenuity alone.
Yeah.
He suggested they received, well, direct assistance or maybe even blueprints from alien visitors.
Blueprints from aliens. Wow. And what was his central argument? Like the core premise behind such a bold claim?
Well, his core premise, and it was, pretty humbling for the time, was that humanity had reached a point where we needed to, and this is a quote, admit our insignificance.
Our insignificance.
He famously said, "We are nothing but ants in the vast state of the universe."
Powerful stuff.
It was a foundational step for him. It suggested that if we really grasped how small our place was, maybe, just maybe, we'd be more open to extraordinary possibilities in our own past.
So not just floating the idea, he pointed to actual physical sites. What were some of the really compelling examples von Däniken used? The ones that made his claims feel so impactful?
Oh, definitely. He detailed massive megaliths, right? Like the pyramids in Egypt. Everyone knows those. But also the incredible Sacsayhuaman in Peru.
Sacsayhuaman, yes.
And the monumental structures at Baalbek in Lebanon.
Okay.
For Däniken, these weren't just impressive ancient buildings. He argued they demonstrated capabilities far, far beyond what ancient technology, as we conventionally understand it, could possibly have achieved.
So impossible feats, essentially.
He basically posited these feats required outside, non-human intervention.
And he called these out-of-place artifacts, right? These specific sites. Can you unpack that concept a bit more?
Certainly. That term out-of-place artifacts, or OPARTs, it really forms the backbone of his whole hypothesis.
Right.
He used it to describe objects or structures that, based on our, let's say, conventional understanding of history and tech development, just shouldn't exist where and when they do.
They seem wrong for the time period.
Exactly. They seem to defy the known technological capabilities of the civilizations credited with building them. And that, for him, implied an external, more advanced influence was at play.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because it's often the sheer scale and the precision of some of these structures that genuinely makes you pause and, well, wonder.
It absolutely does.
Take Sacsayhuaman in Peru, for instance. What makes that site so particularly intriguing? Why does it stand out?
Sacsayhuaman is, well, it's truly astonishing. We're talking about these colossal stones. Some weigh up to, 360 tons?
360 tons! That's incredible.
It is. And it's not just their immense size. These blocks were somehow moved, often over 20 miles from the quarries where they were cut.
20 miles? How?
That's the question. And then they were fitted together with such incredible precision, they interlock almost seamlessly, like people say it looks laser cut. It's an engineering marvel, plain and
A
simple.
laser connect.
Von Daniken, looking at this, he provocatively suggested these feats might have been like extraterrestrial instruction manuals for early humans, showing them advanced techniques.
Instruction manuals from space. Okay, let's jump across the globe. From Peru, let's travel to Baalbek in Lebanon. What makes that site so central to these ancient astronaut theories?
Right, Baalbek. It takes the scale to an even more, frankly, mind-boggling level.
Bigger than Sacsayhuaman.
In terms of individual stone weight, yes. Here we see these enormous pillars and parts of the foundation called the trilithon. Some stones weigh up to an astonishing 1,650 tons.
1,650 tons. That's almost unimaginable.
It really is. And what's particularly striking and puzzling for researchers is the absence of clear historical records or, any known ancient methods that fully explain how these immense stones were transported, carved, and then lifted into place.
So, a genuine mystery.
It's a monumental puzzle.
Yeah.
As one historian aptly put it, Baalbek is like a screen upon which to project strikingly varied stories. Precisely because its construction remains so enigmatic, it just invites all sorts of theories, including von Daniken's.
And then shifting our gaze again, this time to the landscape itself. We have the Nazca Lines in Peru. These aren't structures you walk through, right? They're vast designs on the earth. How do they fit this narrative?
Yeah, the Nazca Lines are unique, utterly unique in their mystery. These are giant geoglyphs, basically enormous drawings etched into the desert floor.
Drawings of what?
Well, aerial figures. Monkeys, spiders, hummingbirds, geometric shapes. But they're so immense that you can only really discover them or recognize what they are from the sky.
Only from the air. How big are we talking?
Some of these figures span an incredible 1,200 feet across.
Wow.
So the immediate question arises, doesn't it? If the ancient Nazca people couldn't really observe them from the ground in their entirety, then who are they made for?
Good question.
And critics of conventional archaeology, people who support the ancient astronaut idea, often ponder, were they signals? Maybe giant landing strips or messages created for visitors from the sky.
Signals to sky visitors. So when you take these examples together, Sacsayhuaman's precision, Baalbek's massive scale, the aerial nature of the Nazca Lines, how do they collectively strengthen this ancient astronaut theory?
Well, when you view them together, these sites undeniably fuel that gripping theory we talked about. The idea that ancient people might have been following, alien blueprints or instructions. The perceived impossibility of their construction, at least from von Daniken's perspective and those who agree with him, becomes compelling evidence. Evidence for some kind of extraordinary non-human assistance.
Right.
The scale, the precision, that weird aerial perspective needed for Nazca, it all contributes to this sense of something beyond conventional human capability at the time.
Okay, so we've looked at the stones, the physical structures. But beyond the stone, what do the stories tell us? Because this theory isn't just about massive monuments, is it?
Not at all.
It reaches right into the very fabric of human mythology, ancient texts across incredibly diverse cultures.
That's a huge part of the argument, yes.
Many proponents, for instance, they look to the Vedic Vimana. These are described as, sky chariots in ancient Indian epics like the Mahabharata and Ramayana.
Yeah, exactly. Vimanas.
How are those interpreted within this ancient astronaut hypothesis?
Well, the Vimana are frequently cited by proponents as potentially descriptions of actual spacecraft.
Yeah.
Things encountered by our ancestors thousands of years ago.
Actual flying machine.
That's the interpretation. And what's fascinating is how von Daniken and others, they broaden this scope way beyond just the Vimana.
How so?
They essentially reinterpret a vast array of ancient narratives. You look at Greek myths, right? Gods descending from Olympus in shining chariots. Or Sumerian tablets detailing interactions with beings who came from the heavens, the Anunnaki.
Right, the Anunnaki.
And even biblical accounts. Think of Ezekiel's vision of a wheel within a wheel, often described as a complex aerial vehicle.
Okay.
For ancient astronaut theorists, these aren't just allegories or metaphors or, symbolic stories. They're seen as literal descriptions of encounters with aliens, perhaps simplified or misinterpreted through the limited understanding of early humans.
Wow. It's quite striking how von Daniken himself really distilled this idea, didn't he, into that profoundly thought-provoking question. He asked, could it be that God was an extraterrestrial?
Yes, exactly. That question really encapsulates his core argument.
Yep.
The idea that these seemingly disparate stories from cultures all across the globe are not just coincidence.
And random.
Instead, he posits they might be collective memories, shared global human experiences of actual ET encounters, beings who descended from the sky and were, understandably perhaps, perceived as deities or powerful godlike entities.
So it essentially recasts religious figures, mythological figures, as alien visitors.
So that's the core of that part of the theory, yes.
Yeah.
A radical reinterpretation of sacred texts and myths.
Now, okay, as compelling and, frankly, imaginative as these theories can be,
Okay.
we have to ask, right, how do they hold up when we turn to mainstream archaeology and, rigorous scientific analysis?
Right.
Because there's a strong, well-established scientific perspective that offers very different explanations.
Indeed. And mainstream archaeology definitely pushes back pretty hard against the ancient astronaut hypothesis.
How so? What's the counter-argument?
Well, for example, major sources like National Geographic has stated quite clearly that, quote, there is no concrete evidence aliens assisted ancient builders. Full stop.
No concrete evidence.
Instead, they highlight that the archaeological record, when examined closely, strongly suggests that local ingenuity, clever engineering, and surprisingly simple tools, though used in very sophisticated ways, were sufficient for these incredible feats.
Simple tools, but sophisticated use.
Exactly. They point to the remarkable knowledge of things like astronomy, geometry, mathematics, and especially labor organization that ancient civilizations demonstrably possessed. We have evidence for that.
And how do other reputable sources, maybe like The New Yorker, contribute to this mainstream view, especially regarding how these monumental sites were actually built?
The New Yorker and many other scientific publications have reported extensively on how complex stonework, like building the Egyptian pyramids or even Stonehenge, can be explained by understanding ancient techniques.
Such as?
Well, they discuss evidence for things like massive ramp systems, both internal and external for the pyramids, precise quarrying methods using pounding stones and water expansion, and just the sheer power of organized human labor, thousands of people working together towards a common goal.
So practical earthbound explanation.
Precisely. Mainstream science provides these explanations for these monumental achievements, emphasizing human skill, human perseverance, human intelligence, rather than needing external, extraterrestrial intervention.
This, though, brings up an important, maybe slightly sensitive point that scientists sometimes raise about these alternative theories, like ancient astronauts. What is that critique?
That's a really crucial discussion to have. Many scientists argue that what they often term pseudo-archaeology.
Pseudo-archaeology.
Yeah, it's a term for interpretations of the past that tend to disregard accepted scientific methods and evidence in favor of these, well, alternative theories. They argue it can inadvertently promote some negative stereotypes.
Stereotypes? How?
The criticism is essentially this. By implying that non-Western civilizations, particularly, were incapable of these grand feats that required extraordinary effort, planning, and advanced understanding, it sort of undermines the genuine achievements and intelligence of those ancient cultures.
Ah, I see.
It can be seen by some critics as implicitly suggesting, well, if a feat is too grand, it must have come from outside, probably aliens, rather than from the genius of, say, ancient Egyptians or Peruvians or Lebanese people. They find that perspective quite problematic, even insulting.
So it creates this enduring tension, doesn't it? On one hand, you have skeptical scientists dismissing it with evidence-based explanations, archaeological finds, historical context.
Right.
But on the other, the ancient astronaut theory persists. It continues to resonate with so many people around the world. It's almost as if it taps into something, I don't know, deeper within us.
It definitely does.
It challenges accepted history, sure, but it also seems to feed this kind of universal human hunger for cosmic connection, maybe?
I think that's a very good way to put it, a hunger for connection.
Which brings us to our final ponderance, really. Why does this theory endure? What is it about ancient astronauts that continues to fascinate us, generation after generation, even when faced with strong scientific counterarguments? Clearly, it's not just about proof or disproof. There's something else going on.
I think you're right. And I believe there are probably three core, very human reasons for why this theory has such lasting appeal.
Okay, what are they?
Firstly, there's what we could call megalithic awe. Just that raw feeling you get looking at these places,
Yeah.
the sheer undeniable scale of these enormous structures, their size, their precision, the immense effort clearly involved, it genuinely challenges our everyday understanding of what ancient technology could do.
Right, it pushes the limits.
It pushes the boundaries of what we think humans were capable of without, modern machinery. And that inherent mystery, that gap in easy explanation, leaves a powerful void that a grand, perhaps alien-assisted narrative can very neatly fill.
Okay, megalithic awe, what's the second reason?
Secondly, There's a powerful element of, let's call it, mystical ancestry.
Mystical
Yeah,
ancestry.
the idea that we as a species might have had extraterrestrial influence in our deep past.
Hmm.
It's incredibly compelling for some people. It's more than just simple reassurance. It taps into a deep human need, I think, to find meaning and purpose in what can feel like a vast, indifferent cosmos.
Hmm.
When conventional science provides a purely naturalistic origin for humanity, evolution and so on, for some, it leaves a kind of symbolic void. A narrative of divine or cosmic parentage can fill that void. It offers a grander, maybe more romantic, and perhaps more significant view of our place in the universe.
Suggesting we're not alone, maybe never were.
Exactly. And that our lineage is part of something much, much bigger than just Earth.
Makes sense. And the third reason?
And finally, I think it offers immense imaginative freedom.
Ah, freedom to imagine.
Precisely. The ancient astronaut theory powerfully blends archaeology, mythology, even the cutting edge of space exploration. It provides this thrilling, dramatic narrative that really satisfies our inherent human curiosity and our desire for wonder.
It makes the past exciting.
It makes the distant past exciting, almost futuristic in a strange way. It allows us to dream beyond the conventional limits of what we believe was possible for our ancestors. It essentially fills those symbolic voids in our understanding of our own origins with an epic intergalactic story. It's good storytelling.
It is good storytelling. And von Däniken, ever the visionary or perhaps showman, seemed to sum up this enduring fascination, not really as a conclusion, but more as a powerful call to action, didn't he? He said, "We are the children of the gods, and it is our duty to follow in their footsteps."
A powerful, almost messianic statement, really. Captures that sense of grand destiny.
So where does that leave us? Could extraterrestrials have guided the hands of ancient builders? The evidence, as we've explored tonight, is certainly, well, tantalizing. It absolutely sparks the imagination.
It does.
And it pushes the boundaries of conventional thought. Yet we have to say it remains far from conclusive, doesn't it?
Far from it. Critically, to date, no actual alien spacecraft, no undeniable piece of extraterrestrial technology has ever been unearthed from these ancient sites.
Right. No smoking gun, as they say.
No smoking gun.
Yeah.
The stories live on. They're etched in stone, literally. They echo through millennia of myths. They're whispered in the wind-blasted ruins of temples right across our world.
Hmm.
They really speak to a fundamental human desire, I think. A desire to understand our origins and maybe, just maybe, understand our place in the vastness of the cosmos.
So maybe the enduring truth here lies not necessarily in whether aliens actually walked among us centuries ago,
Perhaps not.
but perhaps it lies in the profound power of myth itself, in the boundless human capacity for wonder, and in our own innate drive to imagine beyond the ordinary, beyond the easily explained.
That capacity for wonder is certainly powerful.
So, final thought for you listening tonight. What stands out to you about humanity's enduring fascination with the skies, with the ancient past, and with our own profound and maybe still mysterious history?